But Mrs. Azmi, I mean, your life and people who have been part of your life, starting with your father, his influence on you. He was a leftist, a tall left leader, and then your marriage to Javed Akhtar. How have men influenced your life?
And how is it, let me add to that, how is it to live with somebody who has very strong journey of life and learnings out of that? How is it living with somebody like that? You also have...
I find it very strange that you say influence of men. It's also influence of women. My mother was very, very
men
strong.
Men and women. Let me correct myself.
So strong woman, and she's had an equal measure of involvement and inspiration in my life. But of course, having Kafi Azmi as a father was a very different experience because he was progressive. And in my house, I grew up with taking gender equality as a given. In fact, but 70 साल पहले उन्होंने लिखी थी औरत उठ मेरी जान मेरे साथ ही चलना है तुझे, at a time when it was believed that women's place is in the home and the hearth looking after the children. And he said, no, you march along with me. Now, he was a rare person who practiced what he preached. So I must have been like about 19 years old when I first realized that, oh my God, what I take for granted is an exception rather than the rule. Because what used to happen is when my mother was working and she would be touring, my father would dress us up. My father would take us to school. When he was working with the textile workers and all that, because we couldn't afford a maid, he would take me with him and they would all put me on their shoulders and I would see the color red, and I thought red was party time. For me, it was just that, it was just so smooth. But after that, I have to tell you three things that my father said to me, which have been a very big influence in my life, is when I decided that I really wanted to act. I asked him, I said, Abba, मैं act करना चाहती हूँ, will you support me? And he looked me straight in the eye and I said, Bete, I will support you in whatever you choose to do. If you tell me that you'd like to become a mochi, if you'd like to become a shoemaker, I will support you in that, provided you tell yourself that you will try and be the best shoemaker in the business. Now, for a young person to have that kind of support, the whole world opens up for you. So my father has been a very strong influence in my life. In fact, when I started working in the slums, when I look back about how it started, what was my involvement, I think the poem Makan had a very big something to do in my life, because it talks about the plight and the irony of the construction worker who with his blood and sweat builds this fancy building, and when it is completed, he himself is not allowed to get into that building because a chowkidar is put there. तो वो मकान का मेरे सर में कहीं ना कहीं कुछ उसका हिस्सा था. जब एंटी कम्युनलिज्म में it was an exact fallout of the pluralistic life that I had gotten, that I had come out of a celebration of India's diversity. To this day, Holi, Diwali, Eid, Christmas, all these festivals in our house are celebrated with splendor. And it's got nothing to do with religion, but it's got to do with culture, right? So that has been an influence. But after that, for me, I thought my partner would have a tough act to follow, because I thought my father was the complete person, and then Javed turned out to be all that and more, because he truly is the most feminist person I know. And he strips it bare from all its labels and sees it for himself. So he has been a very strong influence in my life, just like I've been a very strong influence in his life, because we are friends above all. Javed is fond of saying that Shabana and I are such good friends that even marriage couldn't destroy our friendship. So it's that kind of relationship. But the fact is that my mother has had a very huge influence on my life. Even when I watch myself acting, I see
A glimpse of her?
not just a glimpse of her, of the process. And you know, it was not something that she sat me down and spoke about it, but it was, you know, like a process of osmosis, because I would see how she dresses, how she walks around the house in the character, how completely involved she would get in doing her lines, etc. And I see myself doing exactly that. So I can't even say clearly कि यहाँ मेरे अब्बा का influence खत्म होता और यहाँ मेरी अम्मा का शुरू हुआ. Just together.